The polar time bomb. Subprime energy loans. In spring 2006, this writer realized that we had crossed the tipping point of global warming. If not another molecule of CO2 is generated by man, global warming will continue. Never in the history of this planet has CO2, temperature, and most importantly, the biomass been so out of whack. Besides the conclusions on food riots and failed states, the melting of the polar cap by 2012 was predicted. In the years since 2006, scientists consistently have been surprised by the accelerating rate of polar warming and melting ice mass, complaining that they will have to modify their computer models. The end of the polar ice cap will result in the destruction of the global food sources by heat waves that destroy crops. Within a year or less, 90% of humanity will starve to death. This is the polar time bomb. Separate and independent of human actions, existing warming has catalyzed Mother Nature to become her own rapidly growing source of carbon dioxide. Why? Soil contains bacteria that generates carbon dioxide. As the temperature has warmed up at higher latitudes and altitudes, bacteria has started generating enough CO2 and methane to keep greenhouse gases rising in the atmosphere. It is a vicious cycle. And this is just from Mother Nature competing with warmer temperatures. The effects of carbon dioxide-originated droughts can be seen in how, in 2010, the Amazon rainforest went from a sink of 1.5 billion tons a year to a release of 8 billion tons of carbon dioxide. This 1998 montage for the CO2 Matrix essay shows how Brazil's deep water wells are metastasizing a drought envelope, spreading westward with the equatorial wind patterns. Since then, the drought has expanded further into the Amazon basin, with river navigation, food production, and transportation becoming less and less. The 210 net Amazon CO2 change is due to how the water-trapped greenhouse gases are released as the water evaporates. It is similar to the release of polar ice-trapped methane when the ice melts. This fact, prompts this concluder to expect the collapse of the biomass and food chain to happen faster and sooner than the 2006 projection of 2015 for a 90% die-off of life on Earth. Bokiag. Worsening the situation is the release of frozen trapped greenhouse gases in the previously frozen tundra. The thawing tundra releases gases, particularly methane. Methane is 20 times worse than carbon dioxide as molecules that trap heat. An analogy, actually a parallel self-similarity, explains how increased greenhouse gases increase temperature. The drop in nighttime temperature depends on the cloud coverage. If the night is clear, the Earth's heat radiates out into space. Otherwise, the clouds trap the heat like the insulation in your attic. Because the molecular basis of heat is vibration frequency, the presence of more and more larger molecules in the atmosphere absorb rather than bypass the heat radiating or reflecting from the Earth. A hotter atmosphere is one in which the average molecule vibration frequency is higher. A simple parallel is a microwave oven. They cook food with higher frequencies. Another analogy is the shock absorbers on your car. They absorb frequency of road bumps instead of bypassing them to the car occupants. Methane is a worse greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide because it is a bigger shock absorber. It has 4 shocks, better tuned to the radiating heat from Earth. Since the 1970s, polar regions have had temperature increases 7 times greater than global increases. Why? Prudhoe Bay and Russian oil fields burn off natural gas that they cannot sell. Thus, the polar regions are blanketed by a cloud of greenhouse gases. How warm have polar regions become? In September 2007, it rained on the North Pole, the first time ever reported. Most people are aware that the polar ice cap has been shrinking. Few are aware that the average thickness of the polar ice cap has thinned significantly in recent years. If ice cap size and thickness both shrink by 50%, then the ice mass is only 25% of its starting point mass. Lemonade provides several analogies for understanding the polar time bomb. The importance of ice mass shrinkage rather than ice area reduction can be seen in the cooling difference between solid and hollow ice cubes in your summer lemonade. Consider what happens to your cold drink when all the ice melts. Your lemonade temperature rises from a near freezing 32 degrees to the ambient or room temperature, usually 50, 60, or 70 degrees warmer. What climate events would be equivalent to not replacing the melting ice cubes in your drink? That is, letting it warm up when the ice melts. The 2010-2011 record cold and snow systems in North America, Europe, and Siberia. Unfortunately, one can analogize to lemonade up to a point. For one cannot make lemonade out of the mother of all lemons, global dying. Drawing upon the organic properties of greenhouse gases, one can conclude the following. Carbon dioxide soaks into water at up to 25% of volume. Thus, we have carbonated drinks, soda and beer. Conversely, atmospheric CO2 soaks up or vacuums up water, maintaining the associated or ambient molecular temperature. Increased carbon dioxide density means bigger weather systems laden with more moisture, maintaining the heat code for longer distances. Analogous to the dance floor carbon dioxide fog are the polar jet streams, which in the winter of 2010-2011 were colder, wetter, and dippier. Contrary to popular gut reactions, carbon dioxide causes both global warming and record cold snow system. This is like the quandary that the Earth appears flat, but is really round. At the same time as the 2011 record blizzard was another record, a half world away. Australia suffered Typhoon Yahtzee, its first Category 5 storm. Yahtzee struck Queensland, which was still suffering from record floods. The polar time bomb is not the record-breaking cold and snow in North America and Europe. Rather, it is how the blizzards strip water and coldness from the polar regions and, 2, prevent replenishment of the moisture. Stripping polar regions was found by the Canadian military. Polar ice sheets have cracks like the cracks in leather that has dried out. Prevention of retaining normal precipitation are the reports during the 2010-2011 polar blasts from far north polar communities of warmer temperatures and lack of precipitation. The normal coldness and snow of the polar regions that normally replenishes the summer melt have gone south on the jet stream. The polar time bomb is how the ice cap will disappear suddenly without reappearance because the ice reflects solar rays into space while open ocean water absorbs solar heat. Increasing CO2 is preventing new ice cubes from being put into humanity's lemonade in the polar regions. When the polar cap goes, its modulating effect on summer heat waves will be ended. The food chain will cease as no food will be growing at the bottom of the food chain. Since the 1990s, this writer has said that a timistic analysis of oil shows that the immediate time savings of fossil fuel, powering cars, homes, tools, and manufacturing, is offset by the greater incurred time losses from carbon dioxide sinning. The pump price for a gallon of gas is merely a down payment on a loan from Mother Nature. She is the ultimate loan shark. Another analogy conveying the nature of the polar time bomb is the financial disaster known as subprime lending. Thanks to the habitual politicians, tenured economists, corporate myops, and greedy petrophiliacs, humans have bought energy at subprime rates with a universal balloon payment, the polar time bomb. Yes, the hot air habitual politicians built the IEDs, ice eradicating devices, presented herein as the polar time bomb.